You think this is enough to bring us down? The man's arms braced against the table, knuckles white beneath fluorescent light. Read the signatures, you lied, her voice steady, every syllable sharp as a scalpel. You don't know what you're doing, he rasped, glancing past her toward the narrow window, the hum of voices outside rising. Her left hand shook, but she spread the folders out, pushing them right toward his chest. Every transfer, 15 years, exposed. He inhaled tight, reedy gaze darting. You destroy this, you destroy everyone. She leaned in close. No, you did that, all I did was flip the light on. A chair scraped behind her, someone gasped. Last chance, confess, she said, eyes never leaving his. He stared, sweat shining on his forehead as the footsteps neared. A door banged in the hallway. Sirens wailed, growing louder. Before any of this, before signatures and exposed lies, there was only a field, a dusty envelope, and a girl alone at the edge of the woods. Here is how it began. Stale air pressed in on Taylor as she slid her last box, the one marked Doubtful Joys, into the tiny Civic, her right arm trembling with the effort. Plastic grocery bags sagged near the wheel well, ramen, discount painkillers, debt letters. The car's odometer blinked 243,870. This, she thought, is what bottoming out on a Thursday feels like. She sniffed, found a thread of iron in the breeze off Puget Sound, and hesitated. Her phone buzzed, a real estate agent again. The foreclosure notice for her Ballard studio pulsed at the top of her inbox, a clock ticking toward defeat. You sure you want me to keep the guitar, Tay? Called her neighbor, leaning over the railing, his voice soft with real worry. Yeah, my good arm's busy carrying regrets, Taylor called back, managing a crooked half-smile as she yanked the driver's side door open with the one hand she could trust. 2 days since the surgeons shook their heads and told her, gentle and final, it may not come back, but you're lucky to be alive. Staring now at her bank statement, $112.09, and a notice that her last check from the hospital had bounced, Taylor felt very much on the wrong end of luck. Then the lawyer's envelope sandwiched between hospital bills. Her name on the label in careful black ink, Pendleton, Taylor E., urgent. She cracked the seal with a thumbnail. Inside, a photocopied will, a plat map, and a single handwritten sentence on lined notepaper. Hollow Creek tract, do not trust the buyers. The piano holds everything. Taylor frowned. A plat map, Hollow Creek, 45 acres of rocky, wooded nothing 3 hours outside Seattle, inherited from a great uncle she'd never met except in stories her dad mumbled after too many drinks. The lawyer's note, clumsy and urgent, not safe to talk. Call me. If you've ever wondered what you do when the safest bet turns out to be rolling dice on family you barely knew, hold tight. Because Taylor's gamble wasn't about land. It was about a secret no one believed and a lie so old the moss hid its teeth. She tossed the map onto the seat, started the car with her left hand. As she pulled away, headlights flashed in her rearview, a dark SUV idling across the street, too still. Anxiety flared, and then the rain, a curtain erasing everything behind her as she headed north. The wipers scraped rhythmically, counting out the miles as Taylor wound deeper into the Olympic Peninsula. Her phone chirped with a low battery warning, only 1 bar anyway. The satellite radio fizzled. She gripped the wheel, thumb tracing the fresh scar above her wrist. Every pothole radiated through her battered shoulder, a reminder of the accident that cost her her residency. It seemed cruel the way fate didn't just wound her body, but her pride. One hand dulled, one career ruined, all those years of study culminating in eviction and an inherited tract of rock and fir trees. She replayed the call with the lawyer as the miles slipped past. His voice was nasal, urgent. Miss Pendleton, quick, don't sign anything yet. Hollow Creek is special. The buyers know. They'll bid low. There's a key inside the old upright. Do not trust them. She'd driven through Gray's Harbor before veering east on logging roads, the GPS barely registering beyond the red slash of County Route 12. By twilight, the woods thickened and the cabin appeared, green painted planks drooping elbows at the corners, roof slick with moss, the porch buckling in a bramble of blackberry vines. Somewhere inside, according to a ghost's warning and a stranger's map, there was, what? A promise or a trap. Taylor propped her duffel on her good shoulder, shuffled to the porch. Each board creaked, underlining how alone she was here. She locked eyes with the old piano before she saw anything else, upright, hunched in the corner beside a pile of mildewed sheet music. The piano was a fixture in every Pendleton family photo she'd glimpsed, a relic everyone joked about but no one played, an anchor among drifting people. She let her hand rest on the lid. "I hope you're worth the trouble," she muttered. Somewhere beneath the cracked varnish, a secret thudded, insistent. Hook 1, rising, a note, a map, and a key, all hidden in the belly of a forgotten thing. The air inside the cabin pressed damp against her skin. Taylor clicked on the light, illuminating packed bookshelves and antique hunting prints. The piano squatted at the far end, its keys yellowed, a faded sticker on the fallboard reading, "Play me if you dare." She cracked her knuckles awkwardly, the right hand barely cooperating, and ran her fingers across the board. The lowest key stuck. She bent, squinted, and noticed a single screw out of place along the top panel, a faint scratch groove dragging right behind the hammers. She reached for her Swiss Army knife. The flathead bit the slot. Her left hand did the work, prying gently. 2 false starts and the panel slid free, thudding to the floor against her boot. Behind the faded soundboard, nestled in dust and rat droppings, she found it. A brass key taped to a manila envelope, and beneath, a series of hand-carved initials, 3 distinct generations. Underneath the envelope, compact and heavy, sat a tarnished copper coil with a brass drum, capped by a wooden knob, an ancient moonshine still, lovingly oiled. She ran her thumb along the copper. The machine thrummed with a possibility she couldn't name. And a letter addressed in blue fountain pen, for Taylor E. Pendleton only. Twist 1, she glanced toward the window, the forest pressed closer. Taylor dropped her duffel beside a faded footstool and slit the envelope, easing the yellowed letter out. Ink bled along the shaky script. "My dearest Taylor, you may never know me. They kept my stories out of the papers, out of dinner tables. But this land, this damn rock pile, means more than you can imagine. Your great-grandfather built the cabin you stand in, crossing from Bremen long before the world burned. We saved everyone we could. The machine you hold kept children fed through dark years. I hid our lineage registers behind the soundboard, protected by fire and silence. If you're reading this, they will come. Especially the men from the timber company, they've been after this patch for decades. Do what's right, girl, hold the line. Family is the only true inheritance. Trust nobody who arrives hungry." Taylor's breath stuttered. She thumbed the edges of the register tucked beneath the still, a hardbound book, pell-mell German script inside, some pages still gritty with soot. She couldn't decipher much, but a page at the back bore her own father's name, bracketed in ink. And below, a symbol she recognized from family rings, a lion rampant, crowned. Her right fingers twitched, spasming as tears blurred her vision. She steadied herself, exhaling through pursed lips, letting the letter anchor her. She'd never meant to come back to family history. Now the story was writing itself through her scars. She snapped the book shut as headlights swung across the clearing. Heart pounding, she doused the light and ducked behind the piano, breath rattling through clenched teeth. Outside, car doors thudded. Voices, a man, sharp and businesslike, a second younger, his words rolling awkward as if afraid to be heard. "We're just here to look, Brad," one said, the name clipped, nervous. "Don't be stupid, Joel. They're selling for pennies on the acre. We just need a signature." A pause. "If she gives you trouble, call Miss Forrester. She'll handle it." Their footsteps faded around the back. Taylor held her breath, counting until headlights receded. All quiet, not for long, she knew. The sense of encroaching threat sharpened every knot in her shoulder. She slid to her feet, flexed her left fingers. "Okay, Taylor," she whispered, "you're in the story now." She dialed the number on the lawyer's card, voice taut. No answer, just static, then the call dropped. She had proof, ancient, official, and in that book line after line of Pendletons, a lineage stretching back to European royalty. The land, the machine, everything protected, willed, waiting. A timber man's shadow stretched across the porch. She ducked lower, fear chilling her ribs. The next morning brought drizzle and clarity. Taylor stuffed the still, register, and letter into her duffel and drove the battered Civic to the nearest diner, a chrome-sided relic with bad coffee and locals who stared too long. She ordered hash browns and scanned the obituaries pinned behind the counter, elbow bumping a man in a sheriff's jacket. "You're not from Gwinnett, are you?" he asked, sliding a mug her way. "Guess not. I inherited a headache, not a cabin." Taylor kept her voice crisp. He grunted, studying her cast. "You got a hand for trouble. That land attracts folks who want more than rocks." Taylor's jaw tightened. "You know anyone who plays dirty for it?" His eyes narrowed. "Folks from Alderwood Timber, mostly. They tried to strong-arm old Doc Pendleton's land. I'd watch my back if I were you." She snapped. "Would they bribe a lawyer, threaten a legacy?" He shrugged. "Wouldn't put it past M. Watch for the woman in navy suits, Forrester, I think, mean eyes." Taylor tapped her boot against the stool. "Last question, who's the best forensic accountant around here?" The sheriff grinned, showing a crooked tooth. "You'll want Maura Kent. She's meaner than any auditor the feds ever bred." 30 minutes later, Taylor's Civic bucked over potholed roads, still buzzing with dread. She found Moira's office above a hardware store, walls plastered with tax code posters and the heady smell of toner. Moira, red glasses perched on her nose, hardly looked up. "I charge by the hour, dear. What's the case?" Taylor laid out the letter, still, and register. "My great-uncle was protecting lineages, and more than that. Here's what matters. They're coming after my trust fund. I think someone's been skimming for years." Moira's lips twitched. "Honey, ain't nothing more fun than exposing a thief." They pored over every document, Taylor's hand weak but eyes sharper than ever. Moira's software spat out spreadsheet after spreadsheet, transfers, withdrawals, phantom expenses labeled site remediation, consulting fees, and dozens of checks to Alderwood Timber. The total, over $3 million siphoned in a decade and a half. Moira whistled. "They tried to bury you under your own paperwork, but here's the kicker, this machine's older than Prohibition. Heritage value alone makes the land near priceless, and those signatures on the transfers," she stabbed her pen at the screen. "Forgery. Whoever did this didn't expect you could trace bloodlines and bank lines." Taylor clapped her good hand against the folder. "I need all this duplicated, now." Moira's grin widened. "You're an interesting storm, Taylor." Taylor's phone buzzed, another blocked number. She stared, not answering. Moira set down her coffee. "You got a deadline, miss. The grand jury's 30 days out. Won't wait for your wrist to heal." Taylor sat back, the gravity pressed down. The web was real and she was nowhere near its center. In the hallway, the elevator dinged. Moira's brow furrowed. "I'd take the back stairs for now." Taylor nodded, gathering documents. The chase began in earnest. Night draped itself over the wind-carved hills as Taylor drove toward the county records office. Outside, the leftover scent of burning pine signaled debris fires, always a risk this time of year. She made her way through the low-lit corridors to the records window, the clerk's nameplate reading, L. Fisher. Fisher chewed a pen, eyes flicking up as she slid papers across the desk. "Lucky day, 2 reps from Alderwood were here yesterday asking for soil reports and death certificates," Fisher commented. Taylor steadied herself, anxiety knotting tighter. "Did they pull copies of any deeds?" "Just the old tracts, said it was for assessment. Left in a rush, didn't see much else." Taylor forced a smile, palms clammy. "You don't remember what they looked like, do you?" Fisher squinted. One was a suit, pale, badge on the belt. The other bald, thin, looked like a corporate weasel. "I see him a lot lately." Taylor nodded, pulse quickening. She scanned records, finding more proof of falsified transfers, the patterns aligning like the strings of a grim symphony. As she exited, a black Ford idled beside her Civic. A woman in a tailored navy pantsuit stepped out, every motion precise. "You Taylor Pendleton." Her words carried a razor's edge, her eyes a cool slate. Taylor straightened, grip tightening on her duffel. "That depends. You the one buying up family dirt." The woman's lips did not move. "Miss Forrester, Alderwood Timber, we want to make you an offer, cash today." Taylor cocked an eyebrow. "You come all this way just to insult my land." Forrester's face hardened. "Rocks make good landfills, Taylor. We're just simplifying the inevitable. That trust isn't worth the paper it's printed on." Taylor smiled without warmth. "Good thing I'm a fan of old paper." Forrester closed in, dropping her voice. "Look, take the buyout, or don't. Either way, we'll have this land before anyone gets cute with the law." Taylor's jaw ached from clenching. She said nothing, watching as Forrester left, get into her Ford and pulled away. The headlights vanished quickly, but the threat lingered. Taylor leaned against her car, breath fogging the glass. For once, her flaw, her weakened arm, became her shield. No one expected much. They all underestimated her, believing pain meant compliance. But in her duffel was proof, and with Moira's analysis, she now held the nuclear option. She opened her phone, recording, "If anything happens to me, send the Hollow Creek documents to the prosecutor. All files marked. Alderwood Timber, fraudulent transfers, illegal land grab. This is my record, do not erase." As she spoke, headlights swept across her dashboard. The phone's battery died mid-sentence. Taylor froze. She ducked behind a row of newspaper vending machines as two men in work jackets scanned the parking lot, flashlights flickering. One muttered, "She's onto us, Brad. Forrester said if we lost track, there'd be hell to pay." The other replied, "She won't get far. If she talks, Alderwood burns." Taylor felt a sick, cold satisfaction. Yes, she wouldn't get far, she'd go all the way. By dawn, Taylor was back in Moira's office, both of them hunched over the evidence, backup copies safe on encrypted drives. "This is our shot. DA wants everything, witnesses, registers, proof of heritage, the works. You sure you want to go public?" Moira asked. Taylor stared out at the lot. "If they take the land, they erase my family. I'm nobody's eraser." Moira waved her pen. "Just so you know, whistleblowers go through hell. You ready?" Taylor flexed her good hand, feeling every old break and new scar. "Ready as I'll ever be." They mapped out a plan in staccato bursts. Taylor angled for the grand jury. Moira coordinated with two federal agents specializing in property fraud. Their dialogue crackled. "You testify they fold," Moira insisted. Taylor's voice stayed flat. "And if they do?" Moira shrugged, sly. "There are ways to leak the truth. Politicians love a scandal." Taylor checked her email. A note from a local historian, subject line, Heritage Register, proof of colonial-era claims, right in her lap. She whistled low. "Moira, you got a contact at Cascade News." Moira smirked. "Who does?" Taylor's flaw, her ruined arm, had forced her patience, teaching her to plot, not just pounce. She packed the register, letters, and encrypted files. The path was set. When the day came, Taylor wheeled into the county municipal building, rain streaming down the glass. Weakness pulsed in her muscles, but certainty stiffened her spine. She'd chosen, not revenge, not victory, but exposure. She stepped into a conference room bristling with tension, suits, police, DA staff, a handful of board members. Alderwood's rep Forrester stood at the far end, arms folded, eyes blank as snow. Taylor shuffled the folders and took a seat, Moira beside her. The DA called the room to order. Cameras rolled, tension knotted every face. Forrester's mouth barely ticked as Taylor spoke. "You think this is enough to bring us down?" bristled Alderwood's CEO, a heavy man whose tie was too tight. Taylor's voice was steady. Read the signatures, you lied. Maura slid the forensic report across the table. 15 years of transfers, every payout, every fake invoice right here, she said, tone clipped. Alderwood's counsel sneered, baseless, show any law broken. Taylor's hand shook as she pointed to the register. Not just fraud, you stole from a protected heritage, federal property now that this machine and these records are public. Forrester hissed, you don't know what you're doing. Taylor's eyes fixed on her. You destroy this, you destroy everyone. A reporter in the corner asked, is this about the European royal connection, Miss Pendleton? Taylor, heart-hammering, nodded. This lineage was hidden for a reason. Now you all know why. Whispers rippled around the room. She flipped the file open so everyone saw the signatures. Every transfer, 15 years, exposed. The CEO rasped, you can't make this stick, we own half the county. Maura snorted, funny thing about justice, it don't care who owns what. The IRS cares though, as does the FBI. Outside a commotion, the DA's investigator rushing in. Whistleblower just confirmed wire fraud, sir. The CEO paled, eyes darting, sweat blooming on his bald scalp. You destroy this, you destroy everyone. Taylor's reply was soft but sharp. No, you did that, all I did was flip the light on. A chair scraped as Forrester lurched up. Stop her, she's bluffing. Taylor remained seated, unmoved. Last chance, confess, she said, voice never wavering. In the moth-thick silence, sirens edged closer. Footsteps thundered past the corridor as the county marshal stepped in. Ma'am, you're under investigation. Please come with us. The CEO and Forrester froze as deputies cuffed them, Forrester's jaw slack, eyes wild. Taylor sat back numb. Light shone through the window, cutting across the table. The high moment passed, a shiver of justice settling in the air. The days that followed swept by in a blur of depositions and conference calls. Cascade News splashed the story, royal bloodline exposed in corporate land grab, whistleblower triggers federal probe. The public gasped, then demanded more. Authorities launched multiple investigations. Alderwood Timber's local subsidiary collapsed overnight, boardroom doors locked, assets frozen, Forrester and the CEO frog-marched through public corridors. Federal and state agencies piled on, emboldened by Moira's forensic analysis and Taylor's clear, unshaken testimony. Community members gathered in the old gas station at Hollow Creek. A dusty shell 1 month, now alive with the clatter of rehabbing equipment and the laughter of schoolkids on field trips. Taylor, bandaged and tired but smiling, supervised volunteers as they transformed the space into a seasonal diner and museum by summer's end. Locals, once skeptical, now lined up to share family recipes for the menu. One grizzled logger patted Taylor's back and nodded, didn't think you city types had it in you. Thanks for saving our story. Taylor's phone chimed, Maura, with news. DA wants to present you with the Heritage Hero Award. Taylor laughed for the first time in years. Just before dusk, Taylor stood in the old cabin, running her good hand over the restored piano. The air vibrated with possibility. Her arm, still weak, couldn't play a chord, but it didn't matter. In this place, surrounded by names and stories, she belonged. In the end, the land lost none of its stubbornness, but its purpose was finally made plain. Justice, messy, stubborn, healing, looked nothing like the stories in books or the sterile cold of a hospital. Taylor found herself not just a survivor but a keeper of names, a restorer of lost things. The diner bustled every weekend, the museum taught kids why secrets, once unearthed, can save more than land. True wealth wasn't copper or old registers, though they helped. It was the grit to stand alone and when the time came to let the light in through cracks. And for anyone who's ever been told their scars couldn't make a difference, this time they did. Sometimes the fight chooses you, but you get to decide what comes after. If you ever think the dust will never settle or wonder if your story's worth the struggle, remember Taylor, her battered hands, and the morning she played her part. The land remembers, and so should you. The seasons shifted around Hollow Creek, wet autumn giving grudging way to a brittle winter that laced the old trails in frost. By then, Taylor's name was stitched through the town's gossip and gratitude alike. It was as though she had always existed at the corner table of the gas station diner, coffee steaming at her elbow, ledger open on the Formica. But none of it felt settled, not as the wind rattled loose panes in the restored cabin or the diner's sign squeaked at dusk. The press had moved on, headline hunters from Seattle and Tacoma eager for their next scandal. The agents and investigators retreated to regional offices, armored with evidence and promises of federal court. Yet Taylor's world contracted. Daily life became a patchwork of routine, the relentless pursuit replaced by quieter anxieties. She would wake at 4:11 a.m., sweat slick on her brow, heart racing. When she finally managed sleep again, her mind conjured new versions of the old timber men, shadows pressing in against the faint lamp glow, Forrester's voice a whisper at her door, "You'll regret this, Pendleton." She de-learned trauma came after victory as well, usually in the stillness. In those hours, she played the old piano, left hand tapping out lopsided blues. At first, this was an act of stubborn therapy, resisting what her right side couldn't do. Eventually, music became a ritual of returning, each note a lifeline to who she had been and to what perhaps she might still become. Moira became a regular fixture, sprawled on Taylor's battered sofa, recounting gossip between IRS memos or cackling at the latest story from the State House. One especially hard-edged January evening, Moira appeared with a bottle of cheap champagne and a folder marked with a red stamp, "Final Settlement." She thumped it onto the table. "Hot off the press, my friend, Alderwood settled. The county ordered them to issue a public apology, fund local parks, and pay back every red cent." Taylor ran her left fingers along the folder's edge, hands shaking just enough for Moira to notice. "You did it," Moira said, eyes vivid behind her thick, red frames. "This is theirs, court certified. Your land, your name, your choice." Taylor grinned soft. "Not just me, you, everyone who cared enough to prop me up." Moira's voice grew gentle. "But you started it, that matters." She paused. "So what now, life as curator, or you thinking of something crazier?" Taylor glanced around the cabin, her eyes pausing on the photograph of her great-uncle beside young saplings, the land as it once was, raw and full of hope. "I want them to know their stories mattered, not just the family, anyone who fought for scraps or held on to stones when the world told them to sell." She swallowed. "I want roots, maybe for the first time." Moira grinned, toasting with the champagne. "Well, here's to deep roots and to stubbornness." They both laughed, the kind of release that only makes sense to survivors. In spring, tourists began following the hand-painted signs to Hollow Creek. Some arrived because of the royal scandal, others for a look at the copper still or the piano Taylor rescued from ruin. The cabin, cleaned and painted, became an informal museum, a window into the region's tangled history. One Tuesday, a local high school class arrived, trailing mud across the porch. Taylor greeted them, introducing herself awkward but proud. A girl with wild curls pointed at the register encased on the bookcase. "Is that your whole family?" she asked. Taylor nodded. "More than that. Some people hid their names here because otherwise they'd disappear." The girl traced the lion rampant sketched in the margin of a letter. Was it scary, standing up to them? Taylor hesitated, then said, "Terrifying, but scarier still was what would happen if I didn't." The teacher, an older man with silver hair, nodded. "History's only safe when people care enough to fight for it. You gave these kids a lesson no textbook could." Taylor smiled, her right hand curled against her side, weak but mending. Orchestra starts with one out-of-tune note. Sometimes the broken keys matter most. A low chuckle ran through the group. One boy, Freckles, uncertain, raised his hand. "Did they ever try to hurt you?" Taylor's gaze drifted to the rain-scuffed window. They tried, but that's why you keep friends close, why you document everything. The land teaches you roots hold even in bad storms, but roots alone can't stop people wanting what's not theirs, only courage and the truth. The class filed out after one by one, but the teacher lingered. If you ever want help with an archives grant, the university has a program. You saved more than a cabin, Miss Pendleton. Taylor shook his hand, warmth blooming in her chest. She won more than a court case. Later that week, as the museum-turned-diner closed, Taylor mopped the linoleum, feeling the familiar ache in her arm. The bell above the door jingled, and into the golden dusk stepped her old neighbor from Ballard, Richie, guitar in tow, a sheepish smile on his face. "Told you you'd do something wild out here," he said, setting the guitar case on a booth. "Thought you might want your old six-string back." Taylor's mouth fell open. "You drove all the way out here." He shrugged. "Place got quiet after you left. News said you owned a piano and a copper thing that put Al Capone to shame. Figured you could use a real friend, not just a newspaper byline." She grinned. "The guitar, is it still in tune?" He produced a pick from his jeans. "Never stopped being yours." She sat, cradling the neck gingerly with her left hand, brushing open strings. The sound was rough, her right hand barely coaxed a chord. Richie winced in sympathy. "Still hurts?" he asked. "A bit," she admitted, "but I'm learning to ask for help and to play simple." He gently strummed beside her, filling the diner with a plaintive, bright melody. For once, Taylor's frustration ebbed. The two laughed when she missed the changes, and neither mentioned the old wounds, because both understood you couldn't play a new song pretending the old one hadn't happened. After Richie left, the night air was honey-thick with spring's first promise. Taylor walked the path to her great-uncle's grave, carefully etched under cedar. "I did it," she whispered. "The land's safe, the truth's out." The wind stirred in the fir branches overhead, a sound almost like applause. She stood a while, breathing in the moss and the future. The work of restoring her family's name and her own hope, never quite finished but suddenly possible. What no one knew, at least right away, was that the Heritage Register Taylor found contained a code, one overlooked by Alderwood's investigators and even by Moira, rushing through spreadsheets and case law. It was Richie, of all people, who first noticed. He was flipping through the display's glass, recounting stories for two wide-eyed history majors one Saturday afternoon. "See these numbers in the margin," he said, pointing beside a list of birth dates and death dates. "That's not a year, that's coordinates." Taylor overheard, coming to peer at the register herself. Her pulse quickened there, faint in her great-uncle's hand, a string of latitude and longitude almost lost among the ink blots. Moira, summoned from her office, practically whistled herself hoarse examining the page. "You thinking what I'm thinking?" she asked. Taylor felt the familiar cocktail of dread and determination. "We follow it, tonight. Bring a flashlight and hell bring snacks. My kind of adventure isn't over." Night blanketed the trees as Taylor, Moira, and Richie strode through the woods, Richie's guitar slung like a lucky talisman across his back. The coordinates, plugged into an ancient GPS, tracked west, past the original family spring and into a slope tangled with sword ferns. And there, half buried beneath glacial stones, lay a tin strongbox, rusted but intact. They pried the lid open, breath steaming in the crisp air. Inside, dozens of old photographs, letters sealed in wax, even a battered brass locket. But what took Taylor's breath away was the legal deed, dated in the 1930s, transferring not just Hollow Creek but water and mineral rights across an even larger swath of the valley, all held in trust for the free benefit of those who dwell and tend in honest labor. Moira beamed. They never controlled what mattered most, not once. Taylor sat on the moss with the deed in her lap, emotion surging hot and bright. "We'll protect all of it now," she promised to her companions and to the darkness as gentle rain began to fall. Weeks passed, Hollow Creek's fate growing daily more entwined with the lives of its people. Taylor and Maura worked with the university team to scan and catalog every document. The museum's visiting list swelled. School kids, genealogists, even some distant cousins who'd never before braved the long road north. Taylor found herself shepherding a family reunion without even meaning to, building community, not just defending property. Local papers chronicled each new discovery. Taylor, bashful but proud, gave interviews in the sunlit diner over coffee mugs. "Nobody owns the past forever," she'd say, "but we can make sure nobody forgets it either." One gray afternoon, Forrester herself appeared at the museum, a state trooper accompanying her as she prepared to sign the last forfeiture. Whatever bluster she'd once wielded was now gone, her eyes hollow, a flicker of something almost like apology on her lips. Taylor met her gaze, measured and calm. Forrester cleared her throat, voice brittle. "This place, it's not what I expected. You fight like the land itself." For the first time, Taylor pitied her. "That's what got both of us here. Maybe next time, remember, the past has teeth." They shook hands, the gesture awkward but necessary. Forrester left, her figure hunched against the wind, the trooper falling in behind her. Taylor turned back to the lamplit cabin and the laughter spilling from it. There was no single moment of vindication, nor of relief, only the persistent, dogged work of making something broken whole. That spring, Taylor finally let herself host a party. The cabin brimmed with locals, old loggers, kids dragging kites of colored fabric, Maura juggling pies, Richie with his guitar, and down the porch a gray tant who could still drink anyone under the table. Lanterns glowed on every rafter, the piano gleaming beneath garlands. Taylor made her rounds, accepting cheek kisses and slaps on the back, her cast finally discarded, her hand nearly steady again. Richie cornered her by the cask of cider. "You did it, Pendleton, you stuck around." She shrugged, an old defense hard to shed. "Guess I didn't realize what I had here." Her voice grew quiet. "Or how much I needed all of you." He nudged her, "Maybe time to write your own story, not just protect someone else's." Taylor considered this, gazing past the field toward the first stars. "Think they'll let me teach music lessons, even with these hands?" Richie grinned. "Everyone here loves an underdog, especially one who saved the town." Music threaded through the night, kids trying out chords, an octogenarian whistling wild Appalachian reels. Taylor played what she could, laughing off her mistakes, discovering grace in broken notes. When the party faded, Taylor lingered on the porch, head tipped back to the sky. The fields and forest shimmered in moonlight. It didn't matter that her wounds had not vanished or that justice was incomplete. The work was unending, rooted in old dirt and new hope alike. Taylor closed her eyes, hearing in the hush a refrain carried through moss and cedar. The song of unforgotten names, the rough music of endurance. She whispered to the land a benediction. "Let them come, we're ready now, and we'll remember." Something inside her, wounded and wondrous, finally settled into peace. And so the story went on, each day another stanza in the anthem of Hollow Creek. Taylor with her battered hands, the land with its scars and wild beauty, the people with their stubborn, saving light. The field, the envelope, the girl at the edge of the woods, now at the heart of it all, keeper of flame, guardian of memory, builder of whatever comes next.